Hi there. Welcome to the second unit of study, using psychological models to motivate clients to change. In this unit, we focus on theories of motivation from behavioral, humanistic, cognitive, and social psychology perspectives. You'll find these helpful in order to identify what motivates you and your clients. In particular, we'll look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs and McClelland's needs for achievement, affiliation, and power. We will also look at key factors that motivate people in the workplace, the factors that must be present, and those additional factors that cause people to want to do even more and work smarter. Motivation is the driving force by which humans achieve their goals. It's based on the basic need to minimize pain and maximize pleasure. We may be motivated by specific needs, such as the need to eat and rest, or by the need to acquire a desired object, goal, state of being, or ideal. Alternatively, our motivation may be attributed to less apparent reasons, such as altruism, selfishness, morality, or maintaining mortality. When we are motivated by things or people external to us, like our salary or praise from a supervisor, these are called extrinsic motivators. When we're motivated by drives or needs internal to us, such as the need to achieve or be socially accepted, these are called intrinsic motivators. What's the difference between a need and a want? A need is brought about by an internal biological imbalance that occurs when we're deprived of something. For instance, if you were unable to get a drink of water for a long time, your need for water would eventually begin to increase as you became thirstier. A want is a would be good to have. We have water to drink, but it would be nice to have a glass of cordial as well. Hence, a want is an optional extra. We can do without it, and often will if something better comes along. For example, some freshly squeezed orange juice. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is an example of a humanistic theory of motivation. Humanistic theory proposes that everyone strives to reach their maximum potential unless obstacles are placed in their way. These obstacles include anything that takes our focus away from our need for physical and psychological growth. Humanistic theories of motivation are based on the premise that people also have strong cognitive reasons to perform various actions. This is famously illustrated in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which presents different motivations at different levels as we strive towards self-actualization. For example, everyone has a need for food and shelter, to feel safe and secure. These are the first two levels of Maslow's hierarchy, and until these needs are satisfied, we find it difficult to move forward. After that, we need love and belonging. We need to feel connected to others in social and intimate ways, and we need them to respect and love us for who we are. Note that these levels of functioning are intertwined, as we try to achieve a stage in life where everything flows. And remember that if our circumstances change, we may slip back to a previous level. For example, if our house burned down and we had to find a new home. Hertzberg's motivator hygiene theory helps us to understand the factors that motivate us in the workplace. Hertzberg divided these factors into what he called motivator factors and hygiene factors. Hygiene factors are things like the company policies and administration, for example, manuals, procedures, systems, supervision of your skills at a technical level, your salary, supervision of your work at a personal level, and the actual working conditions, for example, the cleanliness and safety of your environment, lighting, fresh air, access to information, access to the necessary tools and equipment, etc. Hertzberg proposed that all these factors are necessary to perform satisfactorily in the workplace. However, by themselves, they're insufficient to inspire and motivate an employee to want to stay and continue in their job. To ensure that employees want to come to work every day energetic and enthusiastic, Hertzberg said that motivator factors must also be present. Motivator factors are things like achievement. Employees must feel that they're achieving in their role and be proud of their work. They want to be recognized for the work that they do, and the actual work must be meaningful so they feel they're contributing to the bigger picture. They must have a level of responsibility commensurate with their role. There must be opportunities for promotion, and there must be opportunities for them to grow within their current role. Unless these factors are present, employees will not feel compelled to do their very best at work and may even consider leaving the company. We talked before about needs and wants. Now, let's look at drives. A drive is the urge to attain a need or want. Our drive constantly eggs us on from one goal to the next, provided that we've been successful in fulfilling the previous need or want. Our motivation or drive intensifies, and our behavior becomes more directed towards fulfilling this need until we are satisfied. According to the drive theory of motivation, primary drives arise from the physiological characteristics of an organism. For instance, the need for food, water, sex, and so on. They may also arise in response to stimuli, for example, to regulate body temperature, avoid pain, and so on. A secondary drive is one which can be learned in response to social influences. These are sometimes referred to as acquired drives. It's generally considered that these drives are learned through association with primary drives. A good example is the drive for wealth. First, we need to be financially secure. Then, we can strive to become wealthy. The incentive theory of motivation proposes that our behavior is the result of stimuli from our environment. The environment presents us with an opportunity, and we take it or not, depending on the situation and what's being offered. We are by nature goal-oriented creatures. When a goal is present, we attempt to reach that goal. It may be anything from relaxing to feeling stimulated to losing weight. Incentives to achieve the goal may be tangible or intangible. An intangible incentive may involve feeling good about oneself, while a tangible one may involve awards or something that brings public recognition. Intangible incentives are also known as intrinsic rewards, while tangible incentives are also known as extrinsic rewards. Sometimes one type of reward is replaced with the other. Another way to look at human behavior is from the viewpoint of the cognitive theorist. Cognitive theories of motivation assume that behavior is the result of the active mental processing and interpretation of information. Motivation is not seen as a mechanical or innate set of processes, but as a purposive and persistent set of behaviors based on the information available. Expectations based on past experiences serve to direct behavior toward particular goals. David McClellan is the most well-known proponent of this theory. McClellan identified three major drivers that he proposed motivate people to do the things that they do: the need for achievement, the need for affiliation, and the need for power. He believed that each one of us is motivated by one of these primary needs, as well as by a secondary need. For example, a person may be primarily motivated by the need to achieve, to get the work done and feel proud of it. As a secondary motivation, they may want to be socially recognized for that work, which is the need for affiliation, to belong, to be recognized, and of course, to be held in high esteem. Someone with a need for power usually wants to be in charge, to be in control, have the final say, to make all the plans, and of course, tell others what to do. Here's a summary of the various theoretical approaches to what motivates us, what drives us to behave in the ways that we do. Behaviorists believe that we continue to strive towards pleasure and away from pain, that we're motivated by rewards and punishment, that incentives work to motivate us to behave in certain ways, and that we're motivated by both intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. Cognitive theorists, on the other hand, focus on a positive future and the achievement of goals. Humanists focus on kindness, doing the right thing, and are driven by altruistic motives. Social psychology theorists emphasize the importance of social inclusion, that is, belonging, and social modeling, as ways to help people make the changes they want to make in their lives. Now, let's look at one of the most important factors that must be present to achieve change, and the best ways to recognize and bring positive experiences to the fore as we put these changes into place. This is the concept of self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the belief in one's capabilities to organize and execute the courses of action required to manage prospective situations. In other words, it's a person's belief in his or her ability to succeed in a particular situation. Much like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we believe we can do it, we can. If we believe we can't, then we won't. It's up to us to have a positive mindset if we want to accomplish something and believe that we'll succeed in the end. How do we develop a positive mindset so that we can and will succeed? There are 4 ways to do this, which we call the sources of self-efficacy. Mastery experiences are those times when we feel that what we're doing or experiencing is the best ever. We feel great. We're just where we want to be. We can't believe our luck or our success. We can't imagine that there's anything else in the world better to be or anything else we'd rather be doing or anyone else we'd rather be doing it with. We're using all of our gifts, all of our talents, all of our strengths, and achieving magnificently. We're totally in the flow. Social modeling is the situation in which we learn from observing others. If they're behaving appropriately, we do too. If they're behaving badly, we think we can get away with it as well. A good example is the effect that teenagers have on each other. To belong, teenagers sometimes go along with their mates, even though they know they shouldn't be doing what they're doing or intending to do. This creates a state of cognitive dissonance for them, something we looked at in the previous unit, whereby they're torn and confused between knowing what they should be doing and knowing what they have to do to fit in. Social persuasion is when we give people encouragement to achieve what they want to do in life. This can be by words of encouragement like, "You can do it," or "I know you'll make it in the end," or "Good job." Or we can socially persuade people by physical encouragement, such as a pat on the back or a rub of the head. We're telling the person that we're on their side and supporting them in their efforts. Psychological responses are those that we feel when our body tells us that something out of the usual is happening. For example, we get a feeling that something is not right. It's intuitive, and often the first signal we get as to how things are going for us. We may break into a cold sweat, feel our heart rate quicken, or experience tears of joy and more, depending on the state of excitement, shock, and surprise that we're exposed to. In this section, we'll look at the various stages of readiness for change that people go through as they contemplate making one, the emotions attached to the various stages, and some ways that we can identify and support them to make the changes that they need to make. But first of all, let's look at the emotions associated with change. This is an adaptation of the model developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in the 1960s to represent the emotions that people go through as they experience death and dying. Obviously, the emotions are more acute when the change is imposed, like a death in the family, rather than being something within the person's control, like the desire to lose weight. This theory has been rebadged over many years in terms of its application to other situations, in particular to the emotions that people go through when they experience change in the workplace. The first stage is one of shock and disbelief. People are confused, unsure, and hesitant. The second stage is one of denial. This can't be right. It's not true. Surely you're mistaken. When they discover that the change is really going ahead, people get angry. Angry at the person concerned, at their boss or partner, at themselves, at work in general. Unfortunately, some people never get past this stage and remain angry and disgruntled for the rest of their lives. In an attempt to make the most of a bad situation, the next stage is when the person tries to bargain, to soften the blow of the impending change. If you do this for me, then I'll go along with the change. Sometimes this works, and a compromise is reached, sometimes not. This is when a state of depression can set in. The person feels deflated, defeated, exhausted, humiliated, totally out of control. They feel like they are doing something to them. Anger, resentment, and sometimes revenge tactics come to the fore. The person concerned may consciously or unconsciously become disruptive and antagonistic to all concerned. Fortunately, after the change has been implemented and some time has passed, the majority of people start to accept what they can't change and control and come up to the other side, moving on. They start to adapt to the new situation and see it as the normal state of affairs. In extreme situations, like the death of a loved one, this complete cycle can take up to 2 years to conclude, often longer. It's good practice in a business or work environment for change managers to make every effort to assist their employees to understand each stage of the change process and what they are feeling. By doing this, they can reduce the duration of the change cycle to a matter of months. There are 5 stages of readiness towards making a behavioral change. In the pre-contemplation stage, you aren't even thinking about making a change. For example, giving up smoking. In the contemplation stage, you're considering what would happen if you did and didn't give up smoking, the effect on your health, what would happen to the family if you died, etc. In the preparation stage, you're gathering information about how best to go about giving up smoking, reducing the number of cigarettes, replacing cigarettes with sweets, using patches, hypnotherapy, etc. In the action stage, you visit your doctor or hypnotherapist, buy the patches, and start to take control of your smoking addiction. In the maintenance stage, you make regular visits to your health clinic to ensure that you're staying on track. Now let's look at 3 ways that you can go about making the changes that you need to make. The first technique is called motivational interviewing. This is a client-centered, semi-directive approach which utilizes intrinsic motivation to change behavior by developing discrepancy and exploring and resolving ambivalence within the client. As a coach, you express empathy with the client for their situation. You then look at the discrepancy in their situation, what they are doing as opposed to what they want to do. If they're reluctant to make any changes, you roll with the resistance. If a client is being resistant, it means they're not yet ready to make any changes. As a coach, you need to go back to developing rapport with them and encouraging them to look at the likely scenarios if nothing changes, as opposed to what could happen if they went ahead and made the changes. Finally, you need to support self-efficacy. That is, you need to affirm that they're capable of making the changes until they start to believe it themselves. Only then will they be successful in bringing about the desired changes in their lives. The second method is called imagery and visualization. This technique helps clients bring about change by asking them to develop a vision board of where they want to be. Clients decide the main theme of the board based on something specific they wish to accomplish or attain, or it may be a general idea of everything that makes them happy. They then find pictures that correspond to their theme, and then type or write some affirmations that correspond to the theme as well. The next step is to glue their pictures and affirmations to strong paper and secure it to a corkboard. Hang the vision board in a place where they'll see it every day, and have them look at the board at least once a day, focusing on the objects, affirmations, and theme of their board. This will focus success in their mind and bring about a realization of their goals much more quickly. Goal setting is the third technique that coaches use to bring about change. Setting goals affects outcomes in 4 ways. Goals narrow attention and direct efforts to goal-relevant activities and away from perceived undesirable and goal-irrelevant actions. Goals can lead to more effort. For example, if one typically produces 4 widgets in an hour and has the goal of producing 6, one may work harder to reach the goal. An individual becomes more likely to work through setbacks if they're pursuing a goal. Having goals can help a person develop cognitive strategies to change their behavior. A very simple model for setting goals is called the GROW model. The letters stand for establish a goal, make sure it is achievable in reality, look at your options to achieve the goal, wrap up the coaching session. If the client has a number of goals, a good way to work with them is to prioritize the goals in terms of their urgency and importance. List each goal on a whiteboard. Have the client assign a value from 1 to 10 to each goal in terms of urgency. Then place the goals on the grid using the numbers that were assigned. Goals in the not urgent, not important quadrant can be discarded. Goals in the urgent, not important may also be discarded, or alternatively, they can be done very quickly to get them out of the way. Goals in the not urgent, important quadrant can wait a little while, whereas goals in the urgent and important quadrant need to be attended to straight away. After goals have been determined, select one goal to work on at a time. Here are the steps to action plan it. Visualize your most desirable future. Identify your goals, which you've already done with the vision board. Prioritize your goals. Then choose a goal to work on, which you've already done using the urgent important matrix. Work out the steps to get there. Look at all possible alternatives. Consider ideas that are outside the box. Then decide on the ones that will work for you. Assign timelines and priorities. Make it happen. And do it again for the other goals, all the while staying positive. Here's an example of an action planning template to achieve long-term goals over a period of 4 years, although you may look ahead 5 to 10 years or further. Here's an example of an action planning template to achieve short-term goals over a period of 12 months. And, of course, when the goals have been achieved, it's important to celebrate the wins. This slide is important because there will be times when clients experience a relapse, when they lose their drive to continue or find it too hard to go on and want to give up. It's the coach's job to help them realize that relapses are an opportunity to try again, that there are no mistakes, just learning opportunities. You need to help them get back to the action stage as soon as possible. Another useful technique is to role play with them different scenarios, so they'll have an appropriate response if things don't go their way. We know that in times of change, people get stressed because they don't know what's going to happen and how it will affect them. This next section focuses on understanding stress. If you take a poll of the kinds of things that cause people stress, typically you will draw up a list like this: finances, kids, work, relationship and intimacy, elderly parents. You could add to this list with things like teenagers, retirement, moving house, etc. I'm sure you have a list of your own with some of these things on it. We each cope with stress in a different way, such as by smoking, drinking too much, overeating, or spending too much time in front of the TV or computer, and the list goes on. Unfortunately, some people tend to take out their stress on others in inappropriate ways. What happens when we get stressed is that we tend to revert back to our primal brain functions and either run away from the stress, that is, deny it exists, block it out, retreat to a more comfortable world, or we attack the change agent, the boss, the friend, the partner, in physical, emotional, and sometimes violent ways. This is known as the fight or flight response. It's only when we regain our calm that we're able to think rationally about the situation and start to problem solve it. These reactions to change situations are consistent with the instinct theory of motivation. Instinct theory suggests that all of our behaviors are influenced by our instincts. What this means is that some of our motivation has a biological basis, but it's not absolutely necessary for our survival. One of these motivating forces is aggression. Aggression as a natural instinct increases inside us and must be released. Aggression can be released in socially acceptable ways, such as playing sport, exercising, or playing violent video games. This form of release is called catharsis. Release of aggression has a calming effect, allowing people to feel good. Taking instinct a little further is the arousal theory of motivation, which suggests that people take certain actions to either decrease or increase their level of arousal. When arousal is too low, they may watch an exciting movie or go for a jog. When arousal is too high, they may look for ways to relax, such as meditating or reading a book. Basically, what the theory says is that we're motivated to maintain an optimal level of arousal, which can vary based on the individual or the situation. The inverted U theory is an extrapolation of the arousal theory, in that it suggests we are motivated to maintain an optimal level of arousal. That's the top of the U. This means that when we're under extreme pressure to perform, we perform badly. Conversely, when little pressure is applied, we perform poorly. We perform best when we have just the right amount of pressure applied. Here's a quick survey which you can take to identify your main life events over the past 12 months and see how they've contributed to how you're feeling today. You may want to talk to someone close to you about the results. The complete test is at Appendix 1 of your workbook. Here's a quick survey you can take to identify how well you're coping with the demands of your work. If you're not coping, you should seek support from someone who's qualified to assist you. The complete test is at Appendix 2 of your workbook. When you're in a stressful situation, here's a framework to help you deal with your stressors. You can either change your situation or change your reaction to it, avoiding the stressor or altering the stressor, or adapting to the stressor or accepting it. Think about it. Ultimately, we have to deal with the stresses in our life. We can respond positively to stressors in our life by making time for fun and relaxation. We can go for a walk, spend time in nature, talk to a friend, and sweat out tension with a good workout or write in a journal or take a long bath, whatever suits your inclination and lifestyle. When all else fails, and there's no way to avoid the stress, for example, when full-blown conflict is evident, here's some words of advice. Conflict resides in human reactions to differences in personality, style, approach, perceptions, and observations. Conflict can have either constructive or destructive effects depending on how it's managed. Typically, conflict arises from differences in personal behavior and communication style. In an organizational setting, contributing factors can also include the size of the group or division, hierarchical distinctions, misuse of power, perception of unfair reward systems or unfair advantage, resource interdependency, etc. Typically, people react with a flight or fight reaction to conflict, which we've talked about before. How we respond to stress and conflict depends in part on our personality type. Type A people are said to be ambitious, rigidly organized, highly status conscious, impatient, taking on more than they can handle, wanting other people to get to the point. We classify them as proactive and being obsessed with time management. In summary, they are workaholics. In contrast, Type B people have lower stress levels, work steadily, enjoy achievement, but are not stressed when they don't achieve. They don't mind losing. They either enjoy the game or back down. Type B people may be creative and enjoy exploring ideas and concepts, and are often reflective, thinking about the outer and inner worlds. At Appendix 3, there's a quick survey which you can take to identify your personality type. If you're feeling stressed or under pressure, this may explain why. Here's a quick survey you can take to identify how you typically respond or react in conflict situations. Notice your top 3 responses to see if you're being the most effective by using these strategies. That's all for now. In the next unit, you'll learn about how you can develop better communication and rapport with your clients by utilizing the techniques of neuro-linguistic programming.